Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdam as our co-host. Daniel, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
Doing fine. We had to do a little rearranging, and I put on my tuxedo for this very special report. So,
We're in our nuclear bunker.
Once again, we are going to talk about a deeply flawed policy in our foreign relations. Can you believe they're still doing dumb things? We've changed the political parties and they're still doing dumb things. But it's okay. The only people that suffer are the American people and a few other things because it's very frustrating to see promises made but not promises kept. So we want to talk about Syria. First thought that comes to my mind about Syria, Assad has to go. Assad has to go. Remember Obama? And boy, he's pretty aggressive, and he did a lot more aggressive things than he gets credit for or blamed for. But nevertheless, Syria was left in a mess, and it hasn't been solved by the president, our president, the current president, but he's been working very hard to change things in Syria. So he's gotten friendly with somebody that used to work for the al-Qaeda. No, he was a partner in the al-Qaeda, leader of al-Qaeda, but he's reformed. I wonder if he had a Christian type of reformation and admission to his problems. No, that's not the case. I think that right now Trump is talking about, Daniel, he's talking about bringing the president of the temporary president of Syria to the White House. You know, well, what does he want to talk to? Trump wants to get rid of some of these sanctions that they put on back in back in 2020, and that I believe Trump was president then, and they were designed to help rebuild, Syria. But that has been refined a bit. They want to rebuild Syria, but they want to do it with an intention on making it an outpost for the military empire. So they admitted it. They want the land, and I see, Daniel, what's going now is just a step in the direction of solidifying the empire with more militarism that's doomed to fail, and it's bipartisan. I think Syria is a good example of the bipartisan mess that we have. But right now, I think the American people, like a strong hand, straighten it out. These are bad people. And I think there's too much support for this. But the American people, I believe, are waking up and realizing that we're in too many wars, we're spending too much money, and it relates to a bad economy back home. So I'm hoping that something good will come out of this nonsense.
Well, Dr. Paul, it's an absolute disgrace that al-Golani, who's now called al-Sharaa, is going to the United States White House. It's a disgrace. It's a black mark on the Trump presidency. It's shameful. Here is a guy who, in the mid 2000s, went to Iraq to join al-Qaeda, and he did it for the sole purpose of killing American soldiers who were there. That was his job. That was his motivation. And apparently he was good at it because he moved up the corporate ladder and got his own branch, al-Nusra Front, and he ran al-Qaeda ISIS operations in Syria after that. He is a terrorist who had $10 million bounty on his head by the US government until all of a sudden he became the self-styled president. The man with blood of untold hundreds, maybe thousands of people on his hands. Now on his wrist, he wears a $70,000 watch, as people have noticed. So it pays to get in with the empire. And in fact, as you always say, Dr. Paul, if you do what we say, we will subsidize you. If you resist what we tell you, we will sanction you and bomb you. And that's exactly what's happening now with the lifting of the sanctions. And of course, lifting sanctions is a good thing because sanctions punish the people. But in this case, they were meant to punish the Syrians before, when they had Assad as the president, for having Assad as their president and now being lifted. is hopefully somewhat better. But let's not forget, Dr. Paul, that Golani is a self-styled president. He was never elected. Nobody voted for him. Not a single person voted for him. And as soon as he grabbed that office for himself, he started killing Christians and Alawites and other minorities in the country. Thousands of them were slaughtered. And that slaughter continues today. And the president who says he wants to go to Sudan or Nigeria, I'm sorry, to rescue Christians, didn't say a word about Golani killing Christians when he became president. The other thing is that they just had a parliamentary election in Syria, and you might say, "Oh, that sounds good." Well, only 7,000 people were allowed to vote. They don't have universal suffrage there. Only certain people, certain politically favored people, can vote. An entire third of the parliament was appointed by Golani himself, and the other two-thirds, who the special elite group voted for, were subject to Golani's approval. So it's a sham parliament, a sham president, a sham country, and I think it's a disgrace to the United States that we have someone like this coming to the White House.
It's hard finding that optimistic point of view that I can find or try to find under this situation. But in some ways, there is something that we can benefit by this, and that is alerting people to the stupidity of what's going on. And now I got to thinking today, here we have an al-Qaeda leader, and Daniel just described he is not a friendly guy. He's a vicious guy, and it has to have a lot of hate in his heart as against the West, Christianity, and this sort of thing. But at the same time, there's a possibility. Right now, we're in the midst of a off-year election that the people in New York might decide they have a Marxist mayor of New York City. You say, what's it coming to? The whole world's falling apart. But you know what? I think I want to find the positive side. When are the people going to wake up? And of course, we argue the case, and I argue the case at least, that people are starting to wake up, and some of this stuff that we do are ridiculous. But this foreign policy has been going on for a long time. It's been there for really over 100 years in some sort of way. But this is a way, from the viewpoint of those people who know exactly what our president is doing. They would say, "We won, we won, we won. We needed this outpost. We have to secure the empire." And I believe that's it's so true. It is so sad that they're wheeling and dealing and doing this. You say, well, we're rich and we have a responsibility and we're going to spread liberty and we have all these reasons. We have a moral obligation to be the good guys. But the whole thing is even if there was a fraction of that, they're going to run out of money. They're going to run out of support, and this is going to end. And that's what I always want to concentrate on: is how does it end, and what do we do about it? The economic conditions are a mess like this, and this is a perfect example of the stupidity of our foreign policy. And right now, when you have a very positive speaking cheerleader. And our president right now is very good at it. And the people do like to have strength when it's mentioned in terms of patriotism. But I think there's more to a good foreign policy than patriotism for bringing the al-Qaeda to be on our side to the White House. And like Zelensky, I'll bet he wants money. If we're going to expand the military base we have there already, and that's going to be a big financial deal. So it will be a part of corporatism and international, the interventionist foreign policy that we have. So we have a mess on our hand, but we can see exactly how this mess comes together. And instead of causing a dissension among the American people, it ought to bring us together and figure, well, why are we doing this? And people can't even, afford buying their groceries anymore. And that's going to get a lot worse. So, Daniel, tell us what we're going to have to do to solve some of these problems.
Well, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right, Dr. Paul. It is U.S. foreign policy in a nutshell. And, Henry Kissinger was absolutely right when he said, to be America's enemy can be dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. And that's something that's very true. And it's something that Jolani would do well to remember as he's led through the salons of Washington, D.C. in his $70,000 watch. Because not long before him, Saddam Hussein was our friend. If you remember, in the 1980s, we armed him, we gave him chemical weapons, we told him to go kill a lot of Iranians, and he did that very willingly. Manuel Noriega was our great friend. He was on the CIA payroll until we decided we needed to have a good little war in the Caribbean, and so we framed him as a drug pusher. We went and we arrested him. We killed several thousand Panamanians in the process. The same was true with Gaddafi. If you remember, he made a deal with America and became a friend. He gave up his weapons and he was promised trade and good relations. Well, that was fatal for him too, literally, because as you know, he was killed with a knife in a very bad place. So this is the lesson of U.S. foreign policy. There are no real friends. There are only temporary acquaintances. So, yes, Jolani will have his day in the sun, and he will be feted in D.C. And treated much better than he should be. But he better look out because the playbook he's given, the script that he's been given, that's going to come to an end. There's going to be a closing scene, and he will be in it.
I think an unwritten rule is easy to look at and dissect. And that is, we in the United States and our leaders threaten countries because we're rich. We still are hanging on to the reserve currency of the world. People still use our dollars. We're still able to borrow money by the tons. And yet we go around, we still believe in our empire because some people are convinced that we are the good guys and that we never do anything wrong. But we go into these countries and have for years, but more so as time goes on, because I think the empire becomes shakier, so we have to become more authoritarian. So they go in, we go in, and we say to them indirectly and directly, economically, and all. And we go in and we threaten them. You do it our way, and this is the way we want you to do it. Join us, and we'll give you more money. And we have the money. We can print it out of thin air. What a temptation. Sometimes when people can access to borrowing money, too many credit cards, sometimes they go overboard and they borrow too much. And that might be what's happening to us right now. And if the people then won't don't like that as an answer, what do? We use bombs and we bomb people we don't even know. What about the bombs dropping in the Caribbean right now? I mean, we were up to over 60 times we bombed to me, they look like fishing vessels, but no, they're running a drug raid, a drug business, which nobody's proven that is the case because the evidence is blown up and nobody finds out who are we killing. So I would like to put in my beef and say, American people, let's wake up and realize what is happening. And it's a bipartisan deal, and a close election periodically doesn't solve anything. It just represents when the elections get vicious and tough, it just means that we're getting poorer and poorer, and people are struggling to hold on to the power. And the power means money for a lot of people, especially the deep state.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to sign off, Dr. Paul, with just a final thought. Assad kept this very complicated and complex country together with many different confessions and different groups. He wasn't always gentle when he did it, but his biggest crime in the eyes of the U.S. is that he didn't kowtow to the demands of Washington, D.C. And so that's why he was overthrown. He was lucky to escape with his life. And the first thing that the person who will bow down to Washington, D.C. did was burn and blow up Christian churches and kill a bunch of Christians in Syria. And that's the kind of person in Syria that we embrace wholeheartedly, because he will do what Washington wants them to do. And I think it's very, very disgusting. And I thank our viewers for watching the show. And I'm going to say goodbye and turn it over to you, Dr. Paul.
Very good. I think what we've been talking about today and using Syria as an example, we could find other examples almost every day. We find some example making the point that the foreign policy that we have followed is 100% different than what the founders advised. And that is non-intervention, stay out of entangling alliance, trade with people. And a lot of people are supportive of that. If you do a real honest polling, people will vote for that because they know that they will have more peace and prosperity if they do follow these rules. And we have the guideline, but the experience I had in Washington is they sort of laugh at you. They laugh at you. I can tolerate the laughter, but I can't tolerate the evil that they do and the people who suffer. Especially when you look, I just wince every time I have to see veterans coming back with loss of limbs and families messed up by unconstitutional, undeclared, immoral wars that could be prevented. As a physician, we were taught to have some prevention made rather than depending on just pouring drugs on people. So this is what we need. Is we need more prevention of all of these tragedies. And the tragedy is the acceptance by the deep state, the leadership of this country, both educational-wise and politically, and that is that intervention is our moral duty to pass goodness around the world. Well, it's not the case. The best thing that we can do is mind our own business, follow some wars, follow some rules of getting along with people and building a country that people would respect, and the spreading of the message would be done by people wanting to emulate us, not kill us. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.